She rejected every man until one quiet stranger changed everything. She had rejected over 100 men, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, athletes, artists. Every one of them believed they had something she couldn't refuse. Flowers arrived at her office almost every week. Luxury cars waited outside expensive restaurants hoping she would accept a ride. Elegant gifts appeared at her apartment with handwritten notes promising forever. She returned every one of them. Her friends called her impossible. Her family insisted her standards were unrealistic. Strangers who had never spoken to her labeled her arrogant. But none of them knew the real reason. She wasn't searching for perfection. She was searching for something almost no one knew how to give. Peace, not excitement, not status, not endless attention, just peace. Then one rainy evening, everything changed. After another exhausting day at work, she stepped into a quiet bookstore cafe to escape the storm. Almost every table was occupied, except one. Across from the empty chair sat a man wearing a simple charcoal sweater. No designer labels, no expensive watch, no polished shoes demanding attention. An old philosophy book rested in his hands. He looked up as she approached. Their eyes met for barely a second. He nodded politely, then returned to reading. Nothing else, no clever smile, no attempt to impress her, no invitation to sit, no performance. She quietly took the empty seat. Minutes passed, neither of them spoke. Outside, rain tapped gently against the windows. Inside, pages turned. Coffee steamed quietly between strangers. Oddly, the silence didn't feel uncomfortable. It felt safe. Then as she reached for her cup, her hand slipped. Coffee spilled across the wooden table. Oh! She reached for a napkin. Before she could find one, a folded cloth appeared beside her hand. It's all right. His voice was calm, almost unusually calm. No rush. She looked up. I'm so sorry. For what? The coffee. He smiled faintly. It was an accident. Then he returned to his book. No flirting, no attempt to continue the conversation. No hidden expectation that kindness deserved attention. Just kindness, nothing more. She couldn't explain why, but that tiny moment stayed with her long after she left the cafe. Perhaps you've experienced something similar, a conversation lasting only seconds, yet somehow becoming unforgettable. Why does that happen? Because the human mind remembers emotions more than events. We often forget exactly what someone said, but we rarely forget how they made us feel. Some people leave us feeling exhausted. Others leave us feeling understood. The difference is invisible, yet it changes everything. For the next several days, she caught herself thinking about the quiet stranger. Not because he was extraordinarily handsome. He wasn't. Not because he seemed wealthy. He clearly wasn't. She thought about him because he wanted nothing from her, and that confused her. Most of the men she had met seemed determined to prove themselves. They filled every silence, talked about their achievements, their businesses, their travels, their ambitions. Without realizing it, they were all asking the same silent question. Am I enough? The quiet stranger never asked. He seemed to have answered that question long before she met him. That is where psychology becomes fascinating. Human beings are naturally drawn toward emotional certainty. When someone constantly seeks approval, our minds unconsciously feel responsible for giving it. Responsibility creates pressure. Pressure creates emotional distance. But people who accept themselves create a completely different emotional experience. Around them, we can finally stop performing. Think about your own life. Who are the people you feel most comfortable around? Chances are, they're not the loudest, they're not the richest, they're not even the funniest. They're simply the people who allow you to become yourself without fear of being judged. That feeling is incredibly rare. And because it's rare, people often mistake it for magic. A week later, she found herself walking past the same bookstore. She told herself it was only because she needed another novel, nothing more. Yet instead of walking past, she stopped, looked through the window, and smiled without realizing it. He was there again. Same chair, same charcoal sweater, different book. She stood outside for several seconds, debating whether to leave. A strange battle had already begun inside her. Part of her wanted to walk away. After all, she didn't even know his name. The other part whispered something she hadn't felt in years. Curiosity and not attraction, not infatuation. Curiosity. And curiosity has changed more human lives than certainty ever has. Most people believe transformation begins with confidence. It doesn't. It begins with curiosity. Because the moment you become curious, you become willing to question the story you've been telling yourself. She opened the cafe door. The little bell rang softly. He looked up. Recognition crossed his face. Not excitement, not surprise, just quiet recognition. "You came back," he said. She laughed softly. "I could say the same thing." "I suppose you could." He closed the book carefully. "I've been saving this seat." She blinked. "For me?" He shook his head. "For anyone who needed it." Something inside her shifted. Not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't. He never assumed she would return. He never expected anything from her. He simply made room for possibility. And sometimes, the people who change our lives don't arrive carrying answers. They arrive carrying space. Space for us to become someone we never realized we could be. She sat down. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. He reopened his book. She wrapped both hands around the warm coffee cup the waitress had just placed before her. The silence returned. Only this time, it didn't feel accidental. It felt shared. Finally, she broke it. "You always read philosophy?" He looked up. "Not always." "What else do you read?" "People." She smiled. "And what have you learned?" He closed the book without marking the page. "Most people spend their lives trying to be interesting." He paused. "Very few spend time becoming interested." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "When someone asks a question, they're often waiting for their turn to speak." His eyes drifted toward the rain outside. "They don't really want an answer." She found herself thinking about nearly every date she'd ever been on. The conversations, the compliments, the stories, the endless need people seemed to have to prove themselves. How many of them had actually wanted to know her? Not the version they imagined, not the woman they hoped she would become. Her. It was an uncomfortable question, because uncomfortable questions usually reveal comfortable lies. Human behavior often follows an invisible pattern. We don't simply want to be loved, we want to feel important. So we tell stories that make us appear successful. We exaggerate our achievements. We hide our fears. We carefully edit ourselves until we become strangers wearing our own faces. The tragedy isn't that people lie to others. It's that they eventually begin believing those lies themselves. Maybe you've done it too. Perhaps you've smiled while your mind was exhausted. Perhaps you've said, "I'm fine," hoping nobody would ask another question. Or perhaps you've spent years becoming the person everyone admired, while quietly wondering whether anyone truly knew you. That loneliness is heavier than most people realize. Because the greatest loneliness isn't being alone. It's being surrounded by people who only know the version of you that performs. "So," she said gently, "you read people." "I try." "And what did you read about me?" He smiled. "I could be completely wrong. I'll take the risk." He studied her for only a second before answering. "You notice exits whenever you enter a room." Her expression changed. "You sit where you can see the door." She said nothing. "You apologize even when something isn't your fault." Silence. "You listen carefully, but reveal very little about yourself." She looked away. "Anything else?" "Yes." His voice remained calm. "I don't think you reject people because you believe they're not enough." He paused. "I think you reject them because you're afraid they'll eventually discover you aren't." Her fingers tightened around the coffee cup. For the first time in years, someone hadn't admired her. Someone had understood her. And understanding can be far more frightening than admiration. Admiration asks nothing from us. Understanding asks us to stop hiding. She looked at him carefully. "You're wrong." "Maybe, but not completely." She didn't answer, because some truths are impossible to deny, especially the ones we spent years avoiding. The waitress interrupted the silence. "Would either of you like anything else?" He smiled politely. "I'm all right." She looked at Clara. "And you?" She shook her head. "No, thank you." The waitress walked away. He reopened his book. She stared at him in disbelief. "Aren't you curious?" "About what?" "Whether I think you're right." He laughed softly. "I am." "Then why aren't you asking?" "Because if I have to pull an answer out of you," he shrugged, "it probably isn't ready to be spoken." She blinked. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill it. Psychologists have long observed that silence creates discomfort because it removes distraction. When the conversation stops, we begin hearing ourselves, and that can be terrifying. Many relationships fail not because people argue too much, but because they cannot tolerate the silence that reveals who they really are. The quiet stranger understood something most people never learn. Silence isn't empty. It's where truth gathers the courage to speak. She leaned back in her chair. "You don't chase conversations." "No." "Why?" "Because the best conversations aren't chased." He smiled. "They're invited." She couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to her without trying to impress her. There was no performance, no hidden agenda, no desperate attempt to become unforgettable. Ironically, that was exactly what was happening. She would remember this conversation for the rest of her life. As she stood to leave, she reached into her purse. "Can I at least pay for your coffee?" He shook his head. "You already have." She frowned. "I don't understand." "You reminded me that thoughtful people still exist." Before she could respond, he picked up his book. "Take care." She walked toward the door. Halfway there, she stopped, turned around. "What's your name?" He looked up with the same quiet smile. "Adrian." "I'm Clara." "I know." Her eyes widened. "How?" He nodded toward the waitress. "You thanked her by name last week." Then he returned to reading. Clara stood there for several seconds. Not because she was confused, because she had just experienced something almost forgotten in modern life. Someone had been paying attention, not to impress her, not to win her, simply because he believed people deserved to be noticed. And perhaps that is one of the rarest forms of respect. She stepped back into the cool evening air. For years, she had believed strength meant building walls high enough that nobody could hurt her. She never considered another possibility, that true strength might be meeting someone who made those walls feel unnecessary. Without realizing it, the first stone had already begun to fall. She didn't sleep much that night, not because she had fallen in love. That would have been too simple. She couldn't sleep because, for the first time in years, someone had dismantled her defenses without trying to break them. There was no pursuit, no promises, no emotional games, just two conversations that somehow left a deeper impression than years of elaborate courtship. Over the following weeks, their meetings became almost accidental, or perhaps they simply stopped pretending they were accidents. Every Wednesday evening, the same bookstore cafe, the same quiet corner. Sometimes they spoke for an hour, sometimes for only 10 minutes, and sometimes they said nothing at all. Oddly enough, those silent evenings became her favorite. Most people believe intimacy is built through endless conversation, but psychology tells us something far more profound. Real emotional safety is measured by how comfortable two people are when there is nothing left to say. When silence no longer feels like rejection, it becomes trust. One evening, as autumn leaves drifted outside the cafe window, Adrian closed his book and asked a question that caught her completely off guard. "What frightened you first?" She looked confused. "What do you mean?" He didn't rush to explain. The first disappointment, the first betrayal, the first moment you decided that keeping people at a distance was safer than letting them stay. She stared into her coffee for a long time. She didn't answer. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, "My father." Adrian remained silent. "He loved us," she smiled sadly. "I know he did." But every promise came with another broken promise. He always meant well. He just never stayed. She laughed softly, though there was no joy in it. I suppose I learned that people leave long before they actually walk away. A single tear escaped before she noticed it. She quickly wiped it away. I've spent years believing that if I never needed anyone, I'd never have to lose anyone. Adrian nodded gently. That makes sense. She looked surprised. You're not going to tell me I was wrong? No, he smiled. I think you survived the only way you knew how. Then he added quietly, but sometimes the strategies that protect us as children become the prisons that confine us as adults. His words settled into the silence between them, not like criticism, like freedom. Perhaps you've built walls too. Perhaps not from heartbreak, but from disappointment, from betrayal, from being misunderstood. Human beings are remarkable. We survive almost anything. The difficulty begins when survival becomes the only way we know how to live. Days later, Clara received another delivery at work. A massive bouquet of white roses, an expensive necklace, a handwritten letter from someone she barely knew. Months earlier, she would have sighed. This time, she simply smiled. Not because the gifts were foolish, but because she finally understood why they never reached her heart. They were trying to earn affection. Adrian had never tried to earn anything. He simply offered authenticity, and authenticity speaks directly to parts of us that performance never can. A week later, she invited him for a walk, not because she had finally decided to fall in love, because she no longer felt the need to hide from the possibility. As they crossed the old stone bridge where autumn reflected across the river, she looked at him and laughed. You know something? What? I spent years rejecting the wrong question. He raised an eyebrow. I kept asking whether someone was good enough for me. She shook her head. I should have been asking whether I felt safe enough to become myself around them. Adrian smiled. That's a much harder question, and a much more honest one. They continued walking. No grand declarations, no dramatic kiss beneath the sunset. Life rarely changes in one spectacular moment. More often, it changes through small moments repeated consistently until one day you realize you are no longer the person you used to be. Months later, Olivia watched Clara laugh more freely than she had in years. You've changed, she said. Clara nodded. I know. What did he do? She looked across the room where Adrian was helping the elderly bookstore owner stack newly arrived books. He didn't change me. Olivia frowned. Then what happened? Clara smiled. He gave me enough peace to become the person fear had been hiding. That may be the greatest misunderstanding about love. We often believe the right person completes us. Perhaps they don't. Perhaps the right person simply creates an environment where we no longer feel the need to pretend, where our defenses quietly retire, where our nervous system finally believes the danger has passed. That is not weakness, it is healing. If you've ever mistaken attention for affection or excitement for peace, take a moment and tell me in the comments. Have you ever met someone who made you feel completely safe simply by being themselves? I'd love to hear your story, because someone else reading your words may discover they aren't as alone as they thought. As the bookstore prepared to close, Adrian placed another worn philosophy book back on the shelf. Clara smiled. You're not buying it? I've already read it. Then why pick it up? He looked at the weathered cover. Some books don't need to be owned. He turned toward her. They just need to be revisited when we become someone new. She slipped her hand into his, not because she needed someone to complete her, but because she had finally learned that strength is not measured by how well you protect your heart. It is measured by recognizing the rare people with whom your heart no longer needs protection. If this story changed the way you see love, psychology, and human behavior, then perhaps you're here for more than entertainment. You're here because you're searching for understanding. Subscribe, because every story on this channel uncovers another hidden truth about the human mind and the choices that quietly shape our lives. And before you leave, ask yourself one question. Have you been rejecting people? Or have you been protecting an old wound that no longer needs to control your future? People rarely transform because someone gives them better advice. They transform when a story quietly introduces them to themselves. Perhaps that is why the quiet stranger changed everything. Not because he rescued her, not because he convinced her, but because without ever asking her to become someone else. He gave her the courage to finally become herself.